in terms of sustainable development pathways. Global trends suggest the need for innovative harnessing of one's own indigenous resources as a part of actualizing returns for societies in a more balanced, sustainable way. Global discourse gives reference to the green economy, the blue economy, and the orange economy, the latter within which the interconnections between the arts, culture, and development locate. So today's armchair topic gives opportunity to explore and examine, indeed, how the arts and culture can link to development for small developing economies such as ours. Allow me to formally introduce our discussants. To my immediate right is Mr. Rawle Gibbons. Born in Belmont, Trinidad and Tobago, Rawle Gibbons is a playwright, director, and educator. He has taught at the School of Drama, Jamaica, with Mr. Dennis Scott, and at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, as the founding coordinator of the Center for Creative and Festival Arts. That is so modest. His directing, devising credits include C.L.R. James's The Black Jacobins, 1976, Temple in the Sea, 1995, Shango Tales of the Orisha, 1996, Derek Walcott's Drums and Colors, 1998, and Nation Dance, The Pilgrimage, 2012. He has published 2 volumes of his plays, A Calypso Trilogy, 1990, Love Trilogy, 2012. In 2014, Rawle Gibbons founded Caribbean Yard. He currently leads this to Ken Sambury. Ken Sambury is an innovator, event planner, and cinematographer. He is the owner of Ken Sambury Company, a public relations and media agency focused on entertainment and carnival. He is also the managing director at EEEempire, a regional event company responsible for fetes and parties. As a product of the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business, Ken prides himself on building business through innovation and connecting people. Ken has a strong marketing background, bringing a wealth of experience to all of his clients. Over the years, he has contributed in the building of popular brands such as Tribe Ignite in St. Lucia, B-Mobile's Tash McFash, Patrick Anthony the Hype Man, Red Bull Flugtag, Soca in Mocha, to name a few. Today, Ken manages the career of Second Star and is leading a section in Pure Carnival. Welcome, Ken. And last but not least, we have Miss Meagan Sylvester. Meagan Sylvester is a senior lecturer with responsibility for the research methods and sociology academic programs at the Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies in Trinidad and Tobago. Specializing in labor market research, she has held positions on cabinet-appointed government subcommittees with responsibility for providing baseline survey data and monitoring and evaluation for national labor market sectors at the Ministry of Labor and Small Enterprise Development in Trinidad. Her research topics of interest are music and national identity in Calypso and Soca, music of the diasporic carnivals, narratives of resistance in Calypso and Raga Soca music, steel pan and Kaiso jazz musical identities. As a music sociologist, she has a consultancy practice in which she provides her clients with insights into the sociological framing of society using the lens of lyrics as the main unit of analysis. Her public engagement portfolio is as follows: education and research, as a board member of Trinbago Unified Calypso's organization, commonly known as TUCO, where she holds the position as Director of Education and Research. Welcome to Ms. Sylvester as well. Right. So we're going to begin by first having each of our discussants, starting with Mr. Gibbons and going in that direction, to give 10 minutes of their opening statements, following which I will ask a question of two and we'll have a lively discussion. And then, of course, I will open the floor to you, the audience, that you may field your questions as well based on the discussion that we're having. Rawle, you may begin.
Okay, good morning. The question that has dogged me, I suppose, for so many years was illustrated in some ways this morning. And it's that given the intellectual and financial investment that we have made in economics over the years, why are we in the situation that we are in? Why are the economies of the region still largely unsustainable, dependent on external forces? Why do we import so much? And in attending the session yesterday, the opening session, one of the things that struck me, and today, of course, is the fact that in the list of people who were recognized, I found no reference. They may have been there, but I sort of heard no reference to any politicians, any policy makers. So it led me to wonder about perhaps the absence of a nexus between the people who do the research, who do the work, and come up seemingly with excellent ideas, and the policy that would put it into practice. I recognize in economics that that has not always been the case, that Eric Williams had the air of, or at least Arthur Lewis and William Demas had the air of Eric Williams. And perhaps Forbes Burner may have been influenced by the New World Movement at some point. And that even when our politicians have been economists or studied anyway at the London School of Economics, like Michael Manley, and I think Forbes Burnham as well, I am not sure about what difference that has made in terms of improving our economies. I'm not an economist, I'm just saying I'm not clear on that. I'm also skeptical about the institutionalization, as we have done it, of economics, in the way in which it is taught, perhaps, and the seductions that I find among not only economists, but among UWI graduates generally, the UWI system, the seductions of the status quo, which I suspect may be one of the reasons why we don't see much change. Status quo has no interest in change. Therefore, when the discourse on cultural industries started among my colleagues, as someone involved in the arts, I had further skepticism, in the sense that while a lot of the work that was being done and done very well, I felt we had to move the discussion beyond diversification rather, into, and beyond appropriation, which really was the practice in a lot of ways, into issues of ownership. We had to be able to shift the economic paradigm in which we existed and continue to exist, and to see the discourse on the creative economy as more than just another sector, but as an opportunity to shift the paradigm into one that is ours, into one that could bring the kind of transformation that to date we haven't been able to do. And to me, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense because if we're talking about the creative economy, we're talking about what our people do more than anything else. That is what we have invested in historically. So there's the opportunity, but I haven't heard that in the discussions, in our discourse. That shift. So that troubled me.
Thank you.
But as I say, am I 10 minutes up? Okay, all right. I say just one more minute. Let me just say that therefore, my thinking starts where, I was glad I came yesterday, where Professor Prasad ended, and I took a note of the statement that he made, which is that we need to find new ways to enfranchise our people, and that ownership is also important. And that's where I start. Right? I start with the creators of the sector, the creators of the economy, of the creative economy, becoming the owners of it. Okay? That's where I start.
Thank you, Rawle. I will now turn over to Ken. I believe Rawle has left you at a good place, Ken. Can I hear your 10 minutes of commentary, please?
Yes. So first, my first word will be connectivity. I think, here when you talk, speak Rawle, it's very heartening for me personally, because I come from the school of thought where we exist in what I would call our own microeconomies. We would create business out of nothing, and that is really because of the new media revolution that has taken place. So I'll give a story. Growing up, I was never really into carnival. I was never, into mass and music. I would listen to American music, and only after turning 18, I got into calypso, and soca and so on. And actually exactly 10 years ago, I was able to take a camera and I was able to shoot video on my own as a filmmaker would. And then 5 years later, which is 5 years ago, drones came out. So now, everybody says, oh, Carnival is the greatest show on earth. Everybody says you have a large street party, but now you're able to see this for yourself. You're able to touch it, you're able to feel it. And because of this revolution that's happening, you find that individuals such as myself are able to take these mediums and we're now able to facilitate ourselves. And it's coming to a point where because we are so engrossed in our microeconomies that there will be a disconnect between the policymakers, as you are saying, Rawle, and academia and entrepreneurship, where some people would say, what are people doing? Why aren't we, taking all of this education that we have gotten? Because ironically, it's probably around that time that free education started. So you have, even locally, you have a lot more educated people because access has opened up to education. And the question that Rawle raises, what has happened? Like, why aren't we where we're supposed to go? Yet, I'm here to kind of bring good news that there are a lot of individuals who are creating in their own right and in their own means these economies. But because it's disconnected, sometimes you won't see it and we won't be able to develop as the hub we're supposed to be. When you think about soca music, you think inevitably about Trinidad and Tobago. But does Trinidad and Tobago own soca music? When you think about carnival, you think about Trinidad and Tobago. But just as Rawle says, does Trinidad and Tobago own carnival? How many different nations or how many different places are carnivals? Do we know? How could we capitalize on this? And I always like to say, even since I was in business school, that carnival is the new oil. And that's sometimes people will be like, wow, how could you say something like that, at the end of the day, that is where our GDP comes from, we get our income from oil. How could we, make our economy sustainable, but use, what we have as a people and a resource that is not going to deplete, because our people consistently create soca music, we consistently create carnival products, be it design, be it events, and we have been marketing it on our own to all over the world. So the question is, how could we capitalize on this? And my answer would come back to my first word, which is connectivity. And for me, I would bring in some international examples. So, usually when you listen to music, back in the day, you'd buy your records, you'd buy your CDs. However, in 2013, Beyonce decided she's not going to tell anybody that she's dropping an album. She's not going to promote it. She's just going to go online and she's going to release her album. And in 3 days, she had 800,000 sales. Now, granted, this is a recognized artist, and granted, she dropped this album with, it was a visual album with a lot of music videos and so on and so forth. But I am here challenging the audience that we could find our own ways of innovating within our microeconomies and using new media to reach a global audience. And I also challenge the policymakers, just as Rawle is saying, and academia, to find new ways to connect with individuals so that we would form a catalyst for development. Because I feel as though, yeah, we would get there, but we want to get there within our lifetime, not so? We all want to see our economy grow while we're here. So that way we would be able to reap the rewards of all of this education. When Rawle has all of his classes, he wants to see his students blossom today, tomorrow. So we really have to be the force of propulsion to push this connectivity so that people who are, because I'm telling you, Rawle, people are doing it. People are pushing the envelope, people are working every day, people are innovating, but we just might know,
Yep.
We might know one person because he's a friend, but, he's not connecting with that other person. And then I might have a particular expertise, Rawle might have a particular expertise, but Ken just met Rawle today, So I would close with saying, how much more time I have?
You there.
I'm there, right. So I would close with saying connectivity.
Thank you, Ken.
Good.
Very interesting. Meagan.
Okay. All right. So good morning, everyone. Like Ken did, I want to start with a buzzword. And for me, as a sociologist, it's identity. So immediately, as I think about the discussions that we've been having, I'm thinking about who are we? And who do we see ourselves as in terms as a nation, as a country, and in particular, as you were mentioning, as this cultural economy. And how do we intend to position ourselves as a cultural economy? Ken was just alluding to the fact that work is being undertaken. It may possibly be, that it might be carried out in silos, and that is actually what we really want to do. When we think about a cultural policy for Trinidad and Tobago, and we recognize that one doesn't really exist, and we realize that independent sub-industries, for want of a better word, are involved in a lot of activities. So for example, one of the hats that I wear is that I'm on the board of TUCO. And so we are responsible for ensuring that the Calypso product is disseminated locally, regionally, and internationally. That is part of the mandate. And in particular, focusing on education and research, we actually have a lot of tripartite discussions with, government and private sector about culture and about music, and by extension, of course, Calypso in particular. But the interesting thing is that we don't have this overarching cultural policy to guide what we do. So, for example, some of the people that we would be engaging with would be Calypsonians, some of them would have been government ministries, some of them would have been soca artists, and then soca entrepreneurs, yeah? And that becomes the catalyst for these discussions to take place. So in particular, it's important to note that the engagement exists, but what we really need to do, as has been said by the other two panelists, is to marry it with academia and let us start to produce the scholarship that really can take us to the next level. When we think about music in terms of the responsibility of music, and we look at calypso as an art form, and we think of calypso as mother music, and we recognize that music has been the first cultural industry that we would have had in the region, and calypso music, emanating from Trinidad in particular, has really led the charge in terms of defining who we are as a region. Of course, you would have had many subgenres coming out of that. Soca music in its purest form, and then we would have had chutney soca, raga soca, groovy soca, and it goes on. But the important thing is that we have all of these sub-industries that exist, and we have representations, for example, of artists that have gone in the golden era in the 1950s. You would have had calypsonians traversing the entire world and letting our music be known. So we are not in a position where we are not aware of the power that we have in our hands, nor are we in a position where we haven't done the work. What we need to do now is to synchronize all the various facets of the industry. Sit down and have these types of discussions about where we want to go and decide what are the takeaways that we want to leave with the local space, with the regional industries, and to propel us internationally. We look at the work of Machel Montano, we juxtapose that sometimes in our discussions with the work that Bunji Garlin has done, and we realize there are still places in the globe where neither of them are known. And it's important for us to think about that in terms of, especially what Ken was talking about, where we take ourselves, entrepreneurship of our performance, of our industry. Where do we really take that? And for me, identity and entrepreneurship need to be married in terms of understanding where we take ourselves next. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Very healthy submissions from all three. I want to pose a question using the buzzwords. And I have about 3, but I believe I will pose one and I will open the floor to the audience. And if I have a chance to come back in, I'll jump back in. I believe the audience have a few questions or comments to make. So Rawle didn't give a buzzword, but I'm giving him one based on what I heard him say. Ownership. Is that correct? And so therefore, I want to ask how the discussants feel about these 3 words: ownership, identity, connectivity, and what are possibly 2 things that we could do to actualize this development through the arts and culture.
Well, for me, the question of connectivity is, and identity, those 2 questions are embedded in the discussion.
Yes.
In the sense that connectivity is part of the methodology, the process, the way in which we actualize the ownership that I'm talking about. And identity, in that ownership, there's the actualization of identity. Now, for me, the project that I'm working on, Caribbean Yard Campus, and I think is what is often missed in some of the discussion, is centered on the notion of our own indigenous intelligence in the region. That we talk about the academics and so on, but I don't trust it. Right? I don't trust it. I don't trust it because I do not have evidence of the transformation that has happened through the academic discussion. I think that the issue about connectivity is critical to that. Bringing it together and in finding ways, and one of the elements that have been missing in the discussion and in that whole business about connection is our trust in our indigenous intelligence. We've been doing these things. I'm convinced that whatever problems we face as a society, as a region, we can solve. I have no question about that. We had Avinash Prasad here yesterday, and he's a celebrated, much laureled intellectual and so on. But as all our intellectuals, when you look back at them, the telling factor comes from the society, comes from where it is they've grown up, the people that they have known, how we brought up our people. So I have no doubt that we can solve our problems, right? But I'm saying that element, that indigenous intelligence is often left out of the academic discussion and the political discussion. Okay. So my work has been about bringing that to the center. That's what I'd say for now.
Yeah, and well, what I would want to add to your work is I would want to say, if Caribbean Campus is somewhere where this indigenous intelligence is developed, I think everyone should know about the Caribbean Campus. And I think that there are individuals who would have shown, based on their own personal work and their own microeconomies, that they are capable of reaching a particular niche. So I would now challenge the Caribbean Campus, I guess, governing body to find individuals who would have different niches and would reach different parts of society in their own way and bring these to the fore. Because in the last couple of weeks, I have a friend and she's a model, and every weekend I say, hey, what you doing this weekend? She said, well, I'm in another band launch. I want to know how many bands we have. And then I come to the realization that this year alone, we probably have 4 new carnival bands, and I'm not even exaggerating. That's a big deal. So we have people who actually, trying their best. So the question is, how do we connect these people and make it authentic, Because sometimes I would like to say that they would have, or we, I should say, would have a desire for authenticity. We would want to keep tradition. We would want to keep culture as part of what we're doing. So I think if we could find a way to connect, then more people would know about the indigenous culture, as you're saying, and then vice versa, in what existing activities are happening, we could keep culture alive. Because I'm sure when we're talking about musicians would now be able to, let's say, go tell it on a mountain and go tell everyone, hey, this is what's happening. Put the culture in a song. So let me leave the rest for...
Okay. So I want to piggyback on the indigenous concept, and in particular the phrase indigenous intelligence. From a standpoint, so I want to give the audience a sense of what TUCO, the Trinbago Unified Calypsonians Organization, is currently doing, and also to talk about my own work in terms of lending to this discussion. So recently, the Minister of Education, together with TUCO, sat and had discussions about putting Calypso in schools. And a lot of the comments that we heard is that Calypso not in schools as yet, but we thought it was. And that is actually part of the challenge that we've been having with the education system. Where are we seeing evidence of our culture, of our music, being disseminated to the wider population? So one of the things, so I want to make a little plug right now to say that this is Calypso History Month. And every year, actually it's so big now, we have 3 months. So it's September, October, November. TUCO celebrates Calypso. And we have a series of educational and research projects that we engage in. So at the primary school level, we have a primary school quiz, getting into several primary schools across Tobago and Trinidad to involve people at that age, youngsters at that age. Then at the secondary school level, we go and we have workshops with them, bringing the art form as well as soca music, so that's Calypso and soca, to them, engaging them at another level. All of this is academic. Then we actually have a series of public fora where we engage the national audience to come sit with us and discuss where do we see ourselves. Again, the issue of identity, again the issue of indigenization. And then also, as an individual, what I do is that I go, actually, I'm not sure how many Trinidadians are aware, you spoke about several bands this year, but there are several carnivals, as we all know, around the region, but there are also opportunities at these carnivals to have discussions about local music and about Caribbean music. So one of the things that I do, so I've been invited to several islands, for example, the Dutch Caribbean, Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin, to come to speak about what is happening in Trinidad vis-a-vis our carnival, our music, and what's happening there. And I have been invited to other spaces as well to speak about it. And so that is one of the ways that I think we can see that marrying of culture and academia taking place. And what I would want to do is to call for more of that. I know that Rawle sounds a little despondent in where he's saying that he hasn't seen that evidence. And again, as Ken said, maybe activities are taking place and the evidence is there, but it needs somehow to be brought to the fore.
Yeah, so
Let me say this.
All right.
Because
One more comment from Rawle, and then I'll open the floor.
No problem, go ahead.
Because I never sound despondent.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I didn't feel despondent either.
No,
right.
I'm skeptical.
Okay.
But I always do. All right? And in relation to, I solve problems.
Lovely.
in relation to Ken's comment about connectivity and Yard Campus being more known and all the rest of it, I'll say that our approach in relation to specifically Carnival now, because we teach a number of courses, we have a number of initiatives, but we're talking Carnival here. And we have a course, it's the only course in the world.
Wow.
It's called Earth to Sky, right? And it's about training designers and people in design and construction and performance of masquerade. And it's the only course in the world because it is for CVQ, Caribbean Vocational Qualification.
Yes.
Okay, so we've taken it upon ourselves. The standards were there. Nobody had taken it up. Caribbean Yard Campus has done that. So we've created a space there, an opening for young people who are interested in learning about Carnival, who are interested in building mass. It's a practical course, all right, to service the same carnivals that you're talking about, and our own carnival, of course, because we emphasize traditional methods, we emphasize creativity in everything that we do, because nothing can be done really without that. That's what we have to do. Our education, and this is the problem with the academic thing, the education has to be about releasing people's creativity.
Yes.
If it's not about that, forget the rest.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we try to do in Yard Campus. And of course, preparing them to engage the 21st century as carnival makers. It's not just about learning the traditional arts of carnival, but how do you earn out of that? That's what I mean about ownership.
Yes.
Right? And moving from earning to owning as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And might I too may need to make a plug in the sense that that very program that Rawle just spoke about was actually developed by colleagues right here at the Department of Creative and Festival Arts. I was one of those colleagues. And if you notice, he said they were the only ones prepared to run it. So I think that, in a sense, gives an example of when we speak about that disconnect between academia. We really have, I want to throw another term on the floor and hope that someone in the audience will pick up on it. Sometimes I think we lack what I call intellectual confidence. And it's very much tied to our lack of creative confidence and not recognizing that we really can push through on some of these things that we do develop in our own time and space. So with that, I'm going to open the floor to questions. Is there anyone who would like to pose a question, give a comment? Yes, certainly, ma'am. I see one lady here. I see Roger on this side. I see another gentleman here. We'll take them in that order. You go ahead, ma'am. The mic is coming all the same. Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Mae Knight. I'm the policy coordinator in the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts.
Welcome.
And I'm very happy to indicate that there is a culture policy which is sitting before Cabinet as we speak. Work started on the culture policy in 2016, September to be exact. And I'm also happy to say that 2 years of work on the policy was done very intimately with academia. We had academics sitting on the team, as well as practitioners and other experts in the sector. And after several drafts, we spent a year in consultation. So in 2018, we did a series of consultations. At the beginning of 2019, we did a series of what we call key informant interviews with a lot of cultural experts and practitioners. And so it's sitting before Cabinet. There are two things there are two fundamental pillars of the policy, and I'm hearing it